All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Innovation Alchemy. My name is Adam Castle. I'm the Director of Venture Services and Partnerships here at WEtech Alliance. And we've talked a lot on the podcast about how we are a region of makers and growers. And with me today, I have a little bit of each here. So joining me is Michael Del Ciancio from DC Farms. Michael, thank you so much for being here.
Hey, Adam. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and we've got Colby Wu as well. Colby, you're from Stratus Plastics, doing a whole bunch of cool things in Windsor-Essex. So thank you so much for being here as well.
Thank you. I'm excited.
Yeah. So starting off, give the audience a little bit of understanding of where you come from, what your background is, and how you got to today. So Michael, we'll start with you.
Sure. So, hey, I'm Mike. I'm a third generation family farmer, operating my family farm for 20 plus years in the Leamington, Kingsville area. In the past, I grew up on a field farm, and then eventually that transitioned into greenhouses in the mid-90s. I've grown tomatoes, cucumbers, and now my major focus is eggplant. It's a niche market, but I really enjoy it. I went to Guelph University for horticulture, and then I managed a band for a bit. That experience doesn't seem relevant, but I arguably use what I learned there more in business now than I did what I learned at Guelph. In the past few years, 5-6 years, I find myself at kind of the crossroads of agriculture, community, and policy, and it excites me to kind of merge those two for, I guess, collaborative solutions. And that's where I'm headed, and that's the next step for my family farm.
Very cool. And Colby, what brought you into manufacturing?
So I'm a second generation injection molder. I graduated in electrical mechanical engineering. So I have a college and a university. So that is, PLC programming, robotics, controls. I brought robotics into my business when I first got in. From there, we kind of grew, we expanded. For primarily a automotive house. So we'll do, front end fascias, bumpers, side panels, IP panels, anything of that nature. We kind of specialize in larger tonnage injection molding. And at this point, with the whole tariff situation and the whole world economy, especially the Windsor area is really been hurt quite bad with the automotive sector. And, this is a cycle. This was a cycle in 2008. This was a cycle before my dad's time. Mm-hmm. It's just, unfortunately, a cycle of Windsor. So we're trying to look at ways to diversify because, the automotive is very unstable right now. We're seeing volumes across the board from every vehicle drop down 10, 20%. And we don't know what's happening the next day. Yeah. It's just, just trying to survive. Yeah. Right. Yep. Eventually it'll be better. But right now we don't know what's happening. So we're just trying to look at other ways to diversify our business to try not to be so 100% automotive. Automotive is still my bread and butter, and something that we will probably not change necessarily. But we're looking at adding products, and we're looking at adding agriculture products. We're looking at direct to market. So manufacturer right direct to agribusiness, especially Leamington. So Leamington is like the biggest market. You have more greenhouses in Leamington than you do all of United States. Yeah. Like it is crazy, right? And when the agribusiness looks at the products they're bringing, the plastic products essentially, like let's say the small little clips or from pallets or from anything, that is not made in Canada. And you think about it, that is all made in Europe, USA, China. And we're not building products for our Canadian market, which is the most essential market, is the agri market, right? You look at health was the most important during COVID, and we all saw that. And now you're looking at agri as saying that's like the next leading, critical Canadian identity that we need to keep alive. Because if we don't manufacture for our own people or our own stuff, then if another COVID happens or another border situation happens or another tariff war happens that are directly related to the agribusiness, how do they overcome and how do they survive?
It's an important point because when you look at agri in our region, over 80% is grown for export. And so, Michael, you're farmer on the front lines here. You started, I think, with that traditional idea of the farm. What a lot of people, I think, picture today of like you're toiling, you're working the fields, and now that's not the case. And that's not the case for over 5,000 acres under glass in our region. And you said Canada, it's actually the world. Nowhere else outside of Holland is there more greenhouses. And so it's just kind of this insane thing that's in our backyard. And there's been a lot of attention that's been given to, I think, other industries over the years. And now we're seeing this like critical moment where it's like, we need to have a supply chain that's as robust, as just in time. All of the complexities that you see in automotive, you see in agri-food as well. And so, Michael, you're kind of on the ground here. Tell us a little bit of what it's like as a farmer right now.
Well, yeah, just to piggyback off of what you said there, I completely agree. For years, I've been, in some boardrooms, and it often comes up like, what's Holland doing? What's Holland doing? And I get it. Like that's, they put in the work years ago to build up this amazing industry that we have. And then the entrepreneurial spirit that we had down in the Leamington-Kingsville area kind of took it to the next level. And now I would argue to say, this is all anecdotal, but as far as greenhouse structures and production, I don't think there's anything anywhere better in the world than what we're doing half hour from here. And it's pretty crazy to have such a massive industry like that in a small community. It's a very unique, a very unique thing to have that without all the crazy hustle and bustle of a city around. So I really enjoy that aspect of it, because you can scratch that itch of, going for it without all of that.
Yeah, you're right. Like if you dragged and dropped the industry from Leamington and put it over top of a place like Toronto, like they're close in terms of what the productive level is and how much we're actually getting as Canadians from that level of making and growing. So it's pretty amazing.
Yeah. But I think now it's time for a shift and for us to kind of step up to the world-class leaders that we are. And as much as we have the production and acreage here, the innovation and the research and even like the education, we're there. We're good, but we have room for improvement in that. And that's where we can compete with Holland. And not that it's a competition, but if we have access to all these resources here, and we have the automotive sector, which has the knowledge level, then there has to be a way to just piggyback off of that and just lift up like many industries with one.
Oh, for sure.
Like a rising tide lifts all boats, And we just become, again, the leaders that even more than we are right now.
Yeah.
And food production, like the world needs more food, and we're on the cutting edge of technology with food. So it just seems like a no-brainer to make this area like awesome.
Yeah. It's interesting to see, agri, I think, has really transitioned over the years from, farming to really being an industry like manufacturing, right? Like the types of processes that are involved, the types of, specifications and like really careful planning. It's very in-depth. It's very industrial at this point. So what does that look like on a farm like yours? And what does really innovation mean to you?
Well, innovation can mean, a few years ago, innovation was just simply lifting your gutter off the ground and growing more ergonomically correct. And that's arguably more important than any kind of robot we could have, just making it easier for our workers. And we've come a long way in that regard over the last few years. But now it's definitely more sensors. Everything's sensors now. Yeah. There's a sensor everywhere. And before, now we're currently, like my zones, we have one sensor for could be a half-acre plot. So if that goes down, you could be euchred a little bit. So to have more data points to make more effective decisions.
Interesting.
Is that's where things are headed. And it's really dialing it in. Just like, everybody has a smartwatch to count their steps and their heart rate, all that kind of stuff. We're doing that for plants now. You'd have a camera measuring like the stem of the plant, the width of the plant, the transpiration rate, and correlating that with our normal like environmental sensors of humidity and temperature. And it's just getting all that to work together to give the optimal environment. That's what greenhouses are. It's giving the optimal environment. And now these sensors are going to make that like dialed in to like a very high degree.
That's so cool. We even have a team at the University of Windsor working on a vision system under the ground, like actually looking at the roots, sort of like from the roots up type thing. Nice. And I think, when you think about plants, when you think about the business world, like starting at the roots and building stronger from there is kind of a good metaphor.
100%.
To use.
If you don't have good roots, your plants don't mean anything.
And so Colby, I know that you're focused on that root up scenario. So tell us a little bit about the opportunity that you found.
Yeah, so we actually made a product called ThermoRoot. It was a product that we started 10, 15 years ago as a trial, that we made a plastic PVC gutter that we put underneath the growing medium and between the metal gutter. And we were running chilled or hot water, and we're controlling the root zone. We were pretty effective. We actually won like a innovation award from the government like 10 years or 15 years ago. We had a lot of support. But at the end of the day, it wasn't manufacturable. It wasn't to a point where we could install it in a greenhouse and not have to worry about it. We had several problems of leaks and other things, and the cost was, relatively expensive. So, fast forward to today, we have a new product out that we believe that is 75% cheaper than our current product that we had from previously, and we have 0 leaks now.
Cool.
So we're in the middle of the process of a patent pending. So we're hoping to have it in the next 4 to 6 weeks. After that, we plan to hit the market with this innovation, and we plan to try to, flood the market as fast as we can. Because we believe that this product is a product that is easily accessible, is easily installed in the current greenhouse. And because it could go on an existing gutter system, it could pretty much take on the whole market. We see this application not just for the Canadian market, but we see it for hotter climates like, Mexico climate and China climate, where, it's too hot to grow essentially in a greenhouse. So we definitely see a lot of case studies on this that we think that it would be a good fit. We have the University of Windsor working on a couple of proposals, and we have Niagara College working on a couple of proposals. And we've been talking with Enbridge. They're very interested in the product. They've been on the product since the beginning of the trials.
Okay.
So we did the winter trial so far, which means that we're trying to heat the root zones. We've shown at least a minimum of 10 to 15% more yield. We've also seen better fruit quality, about 20% larger in cucumbers and straighter. So we definitely see the benefits. And I think most growers that are experienced, they kind of already know this. They kind of already know that, controlling that root zone temperature or trying to get that perfect climate for that plant is ideal for it to grow.
Yeah.
I'm not a horticulturist by any means. I'm just a manufacturer trying to make product for people and trying to make them at a very affordable cost to make sure that, we keep, business in Canada and, keep thriving, right? So that's more Mike's scenario.
Yeah.
I'll just interject here. He just showed me out in the hallway there a small 1 foot sample. And as soon as I saw it, I asked him, what's this? And then he explained it. And he's onto something.
It's
definitely.
A no-brainer?
Yeah,
Cool.
It's a no-brainer. And it's something that I'm going to have issues with because right now my water's too hot and the temperature's getting hotter. So it's a timely thing for us.
It's really interesting when you talk about, you're creating an environment, right? Like greenhouse is about creating the optimal growing environment, but the environment outside of the greenhouse continues to get hotter. It continues to get hotter earlier. And so it's so much harder to predict or to maintain current levels, right? And in Canada, once upon a time, that wasn't the case. In fact, the only role of those greenhouses was to keep things as hot as possible because you needed it through winter seasons. And now winter's 2.5 weeks and, there's wildfires involved. So, how is that affecting from a sustainability standpoint? How are you dealing with kind of what the outside means for inside in ag?
Well, that's where Holland has, they get nice cold nights. And you get more stable temperatures. Here we deal with very cold winters and then very hot times in the summer. And on those days, there is, we shade our greenhouse. We use energy curtains, blackout curtains, and all of those are very sustainable options for reducing gas consumption. So we are also, you mentioned Enbridge, which is, I want to talk to you about that later too.
Yes.
I'm currently doing a project with them as well, with utilizing AI to operate half my farm with the AI system and half against what I would do typically.
Okay.
And last year I did this trial for from September to December, 3 months, and I got 4% increase in production, which either says, AI is doing good or I'm not as good a grower as I thought. But a combination of both. But after, when you look at those numbers more, I was seeing that the AI controlled model was utilizing more heat. So it's keeping my greenhouse hotter. So that could be in and of itself,
That's
maybe
really interesting.
the increase.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, is the net profit back to me worth it?
Yeah.
That's debatable. So now I'm honing in on this study to see the gas consumption per meters cubed versus my production versus per meter squared, and then that will give me like a definite answer.
Really cool. And one thing too about AI is they don't look as good in overalls on a straw hat. So like, you're winning there at the very least for a little bit longer.
Yes.
I want to talk a little bit about, you basically used an A/B test to figure out, is this, against myself, is it going to create a better yield or better conditions? And that's something that we've seen greenhouse owners typically shy away from, is this idea that like you can't experiment with this stuff. It's so important that you're not able to test out on a piece of crop. And I know that's different from what you do. You're all about the experimentation and all about iterating. Yeah. In terms of what that looks like for you, like how important is it to run those experiments, and in terms of what's building next for you, where do you go from there?
Well, being I'm a smaller farm in the grand scheme of things out in that area, so I can't compete in the square footage. Just it's not a game I'm playing. So I have to be adaptable and diversify in other ways. And something I've always kind of liked to do is just kind of do the things that nobody else is doing, And so when it comes to innovation, and it's a lot easier. Granted, it's a lot easier for a smaller farm like myself to take those risks, because these larger farms, if they trialed it on, 30 acres, if that goes wrong, that could be costly for sure.
Yeah. A few $1 million.
And they all have contracts to fulfill, and so do I. But, a few acres is a lot different.
Yeah.
But by doing that, and it's always, you start off small, you make small changes. Even when you change crops, you would do like 1 row, and then the next year maybe 8 rows, and then maybe an acre. So it's small incremental changes. At first, when I started implementing some of this AI, I said yes to a bunch of things, and it got overwhelming. Yeah. And there was for half a year there, I was like, oh my God, what's going on? But my production didn't suffer all that much, because I was still keeping a very close eye on it. And anytime I saw something go out of whack, I would just shut it off. Yeah. But it was a lot on me.
Of course,
because I had a lot to manage.
You're already hypervigilant.
Yes,
and then over another level.
Bingo.
Trying to train the AI, that's difficult.
Yeah.
And when you're working with these AI companies, they want you to let it go so they can see their thing.
Your money's on the line.
You know what I mean?
I'm
like, guys, I can't. Like, if it's my temperature's off like 5 degrees, that's huge.
Yeah.
So there are little areas like that, and there's some blips in the road. But over time, you just have to work that. That adopter phase is just a necessary part of just early adopter phase, just working through those kind of things.
Yeah.
Now I think I have it. I mean, the systems are a little bit better. I'm a little bit more comfortable with it. So it's about trust, really.
Yeah.
Because, I just go in every morning, I check my environment computer, I know what to do. I've been doing it for 20 years.
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden I'm supposed to just trust it's doing the right thing.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
That's a lot to get over just internally.
Yeah.
It's a lot when you're sitting in a self-driving vehicle to take your hands off the wheel. So it's essentially, that's what you're doing for a crop. You know what I mean?
And when you're dealing with plants, they're very sensitive.
Of course.
So 1 hour at 10 degrees could do a lot of harm to your plants and a lot of money.
Right.
So you have to be on it.
Yeah. Yeah, and that makes sense why you start so small with those experimentations, because then you trust it a little bit more to.
And then you put in the roadblocks in place too. Like you
Yes.
talk to these companies, you need the safety. Like if it hits this, it just shuts off and goes back to my normal settings.
Yeah.
So it's having those boundaries in place that you're comfortable with.
Really cool. So from experimenting and kind of pivoting into new technologies and how you do your work, you're pivoting into a brand new market from outside of it. How do you prepare for that?
You just got to do it. It's entrepreneurship, right? It's just, you got to take your risk. I'm spending a fortune on all these tooling and molds, and I really believe that I'm going to try to take that market on as quickly as possible. I really truly believe that I could produce everything and anything much cheaper than what they're currently getting. And if I could save, 5% or even 10% of their spend, I think they're going to come flocking, I'm hoping, right?
Well, they should.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, that's like bottom line dollars. Just simple little things like just pallets, bins, whatever plastic they produce. I'm looking to try to make that product. I'm trying to make it locally in Windsor. And then now the shipping cost is dirt cheap. Like it's a 30-minute shipping. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And now you can also look at it this way too. Instead of like that farmer having to buy, a whole shipping container worth of product, now they could just buy a little bit at a time and fix their cash flow issues. You know what I mean? Like, think about all the clips, just like a little small scenario, right? The little plastic clips that you guys use. Well, I would assume you guys had to buy a big bulk at a time to get discounts, right?
Yes.
So if we're to say, okay, well, why don't we set you up on a schedule where every month I give you X amount, and then now your cash flow is a lot cleaner, and you don't have to put all that cash up front, right? And you don't have to store it. You don't do anything, right? And it's lean manufacturing. This is what we do in automotive.
Yep.
So it's the same thing that I would probably implement trying to get into agriculture world is like lean manufacturing. You need it, I'll build it like a week before. And you'll get it.
Yeah,
right?
that just-in-time approach. And obviously, that's a big space. And
it's cash flow.
Yeah.
Business is all about cash flow. And if you can't cash flow anything, or if you can find ways to extend that cash flow, then you'll make more money.
Yeah.
Not just on interest alone, but just on everything. Like everything flows better. And that's like the Toyota, Toyota way, I guess, right?
Yeah.
So that's kind of what I'm trying to do, and I'm trying to diversify out of my market. So I made just enough money in the automotive world to try to diversify. Like I said, I'm not gonna exit out of automotive. It's not financially feasible for me to do that. But I think it is a good market to try to target.
Yeah.
Right.
You bring up the point about trust, right? So you have to trust in the technology. I think one of the hurdles that you kind of have to overcome is building that trust in with the growers as well, because the suppliers that they're currently working with have been around for 150 plus years, longer in some cases, and so it's really about building that trust into the new market and trust around that piece. And I think layering on that automotive just-in-time mentality can go a long way to doing that, because that's how you're operating in the world of deliveries as well. And so you understand that, like knows like,
Yes.
Which is really interesting.
I think, obviously the biggest pivot is, reducing their costs.
Yeah.
Like every greenhouse, every grower, that's all at the bottom line, I think that's like the majority of the cost, right? That's the majority of the thing that they care about, right?
Yeah.
If I could save them money, they're going to come.
For sure,
right?
for sure.
Yeah.
I think this conversation's so cool because you're both makers and growers. You're both doing something that's super unique on different ends of the spectrum and bringing it together. What are you proud of? I'm curious. Like both of your businesses have been around for generations, and there's such a history there.
Yeah.
What kind of within your tenure are you most proud of?
I'll start if you don't mind.
Yeah, go ahead.
I really love the family business, and I would tell my children to stay in the family business at every time. I've worked outside of the family business, and it's just so much different, and it's hard to explain. Working with your parents is something that you don't see when you're young, and you don't appreciate it when you're young. But as you get older and when you start having kids, you have a different appreciation of working with your parents and spending that time with them that you'll never be able to spend.
Yeah, for sure.
I have two older brothers, and I think I'm the most fortunate out of my two older brothers. And the reason why is because I get to spend the most time with my parents, right? And it's it's a weird thing to say, and it's hard to explain until you're in a family business and you understand how important it is. And like I said, when you're younger, you're like, I don't want to do anything with this family business. Like I want to get out of here as quickly as possible. But then as you grow up and you see how the world really is and how difficult the world is, and giving the opportunity to someone like your child is probably the biggest gift that you could ever give. And and for them to work so hard for you to be able to grow that business, it makes you want to thrive, to make sure that business is going to succeed. And it's like you have a different goal, like you have a different passion. And it's like, listen, I'm doing this for my family now. It's not necessarily for myself, and I don't really care really what happens with myself. I want to make sure that my family, that my parents, could retire happy. They don't have to worry about anything, and that my future children at least have something. If whatever they decide in life that they don't want to do, they have something to fall back on, right? And I think that's really important. And as I grow older, I think that I would assume that my children wouldn't want to go into my business now and as they get into their teens. But, eventually I would hope that they would come back and they would see the benefit and see the family ties. It's not just like, you're building a business together, but, you're spending time, you're going, you're eating dinners together. You're spending more time than you ever would. If you think about how much time you spend at work versus with your family. Most people spend like 90% of their life working than with their family, right? But, as a family business, you're spending at least like 60% of your family at all times. So it's very important to me as a family business, and I love it. And I would highly suggest anyone that is looking to jump into a generational business, I think you should. And there's many challenges. My family's business, we always struggled. Like we've always just trying to make it all the time. And it's always been like that. And I think that's a lot of family generations, but it's up to, my generation or the next generation to say, okay, how can we improve this? How can we make this better? How can we, make more money or employ more people, and that's the key. Right. And, I've had opportunities where people wanted to buy the business and I'm like, listen, I don't care how much money you give me. It's not about the money for me. If I sold this business, what would my dad do? He would he would literally just be sitting watching TV, and it just wouldn't be good for his health. He wants to go into he's not very active anymore, I would say, in the business overall. But just having his presence there is a big deal and a big motivator for me.
Oh, right? For sure.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. Michael.
Fantastic. I echo every one of those sentiments for sure. Working with my family is it was a blessing that with every passing year, the older I get, it just becomes more and more apparent. Did I notice that when I was 15? No. 25? No. I thought the answer was in Toronto, and then it was like, no, it's not. It's right here growing food with my family. I can see my father every day, and ever since I had a son, like he comes around and I can teach him about plants, and he checks the EC levels and all of those things, and that's priceless. So the challenge now is I'm at a stage where I'm looking to take the kind of the next stage in growth with my business. And it's important to me to keep that family, those family values, front and center. With the change that comes, it can be challenging because oftentimes I see, if you got to bring in money or the other partnerships or whatnot. So it's about picking the right people that align with your values, and that's what I'm focused on. So if you align with my values, great. Unfortunately, if you don't, then it's not going to work.
There's no space for it. It's interesting how much of a shift like kids give you in perspective around this stuff. We work with a lot of entrepreneurs that are working not just for themselves, but they're for families as well. And this idea that, you've both taken something that had really strong foundations, but you're looking to do something different with it. You're looking to bring it into, this century, and really provide something not just for yourselves, but then that generation below you. I don't know what that is around, like you get into that that like 30, 35 age.
Sure.
And all of a sudden roots again come so important. And just so foundational of like what you want to provide to kind of the next level. So just really, really cool.
And that's how you change the world.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
You know,
yeah. That's
I've always wanted to.
The only way right now we can time travel is what we can provide to our kids. Right. And hopefully it's a little bit better than what we knew. Something that I want to kind of dive into is some of the lessons that you've learned, both as, third generation, second generation business owners, but also folks that are navigating like this insane timeline that we're currently in. What are kind of and Michael, I'll start with you, like the biggest lesson that you've had as a takeaway from your time?
That's a great question. I would say it's just putting yourself out there and taking risk. I mean, it's the entrepreneurial thing that everybody says.
But that's so counterintuitive to ag. I found in my experience. Like that hasn't typically been, it's been safe. It's been like, we don't want to take too much risk. So I think that's so different. And that's why having this generational kind of like baton handoff is so important, because you've come into it and said like, no, we're going to do that because that's how we prepare ourselves for what's next.
Exactly. And like I said, being a little bit of a smaller farm, I had to find my niche in everything. I mean, that's why I grow eggplant, but even my niche within like myself, where I fit, just my character in business. And admittedly, I can be a bit of a handful, but in the best of ways. Like when I couldn't necessarily grow my business in square acreage, I took on more risks just personally, going on boards, running for council, other such things. So I just tried to build up myself and my own knowledge base, and the thinking that, in the long run, you can never go wrong doing that. And eventually that pays off. And some very uncomfortable moments, I'm in some rooms that I never thought I'd be a part of, but it's all pretty cool. That's like awesome. I enjoy learning and looking at things holistically and trying to solve it that way. It's an adventure. And that's what I enjoy about it the most.
I think you hear a lot about the term looking at imposter syndrome. And what I think we're seeing now is this generation that's actually dealing with a lot of like professional vertigo, where you're looking down at what came before and where you were, and it's like, whoa, how did I get to this point? Like, that's a long way to look when you think about how far you've climbed from the bottom, kind of thing.
Sometimes I don't always see it. Like I appreciate that reminder.
That's the issue. It's like you got to keep your head forward, because the minute you look down, it can be a little scary.
I struggle sometimes. Like before meetings, sometimes I'm like hyping myself up. I have my songs that I listen to get in the zone, slap myself around. But it's just reminding yourself. I journal a lot, and I look back and like, wow, I did that like 3 years ago. And now here I am. So it's like I earned it.
That's really
It's
cool.
important to me that I earn it.
Yes. So, I think so too. Colby, what's been the big lessons for you?
When I was younger, I would, I was like 19, 20, I was working at the factory, and I had obviously superiors ahead of me, like quality managers and everything like that. And, they would always tell me, no. Like, everything I would do, they'd be like, no. And then I got to a point where I was like, you know what, F this, I'm just going to do it. And I would just do it, and they would get so mad, and I would learn from my mistakes so quickly, and then eventually I would just surpass them. Right. And I think that was like one of the most pivotal things when I was younger, where I was always a little bit rebellious. So it kind of fed into it, where I was like, oh, you can't do this, you can't do that. Okay, well, I'm going to do it, and probably failed. But then the second time I would do it, I'd be able to do it. Right. And then, so I think, perseverance was a big thing for me, especially in my type of business, because Stratus Plastics almost went bankrupt 2 times in its history. And the first time was in 2008. And my dad at that time, I remember we were only running, one shift for the whole week. And we had several millions of dollars that we owed. The bankers, put us in forbearance. We were in critical line of credits. It was a bad situation. And all my family members and everybody would tell my father, hey, just quit. Just close up the shop and let's move on in life. Like, you're losing too much money. You can't sustain this. It was to a point where, our primary residence, my father wasn't paying the tax because we needed that money to pay the lawyers.
Yeah.
It was bad. I remember when I was a young kid, I would have, the bailiffs come to my house and be like, yeah, here's a letter of being served. And at the time, I was still I was probably in college, and I'm like 21, somewhere around there. He's young. And my dad was like, here's all the books. And my dad let me do all the finances. And he's like, this is how much money you're losing every day. This is where you're in.
It's a sobering moment.
Yeah. And then he let me see the world as in the worst possible scenario. So he let me deal with all the banks at the time, because you got to remember, my father is an immigrant, right? Yeah. And my father came to Canada with no English, but with his hands, and he worked hard, right? And that's how he made his money. He was a guy that would work, 20 hours a day if he could, right? Yeah. But he wasn't like, oh, well, let's look at all these accounting and figure out, the tips and tricks and stuff. Like he didn't grow up in that kind of atmosphere. He didn't have the education. He never even went to, high school.
Yeah.
He didn't even go to grade school, I don't think. He just came and he worked as a paper boy right when he came into Canada with no English, right? So I see that as something that I take pride into my own personal life, right? And when I was a kid, like my parents worked 20 hours I would literally eat at 10 o'clock at night every day, 7 days a week. And while my other friends would go to like soccer and all these school activities, my parents had a bunch of, rental properties on Wyandotte Street, which is, not a great street back in the day.
Yeah.
And they would make me cut the grass, paint all the walls, clean up all the junk from the next person, and there's needles. It was bad. It was a bad situation, and my parents made me do it all, right? And I think what that taught me was you got to work hard no matter what. Even if your parents are successful or if they're not, if you just work hard enough and you put in the hours and you put in the effort, you'll eventually make it. Maybe not now, but over time, you will. Right. So kind of getting back to when I was almost in bankruptcy, my dad let me do all the finances. So he really taught me. He didn't necessarily teach me. He taught me in a way where I was forced to learn the situation where I was in a really bad cash flow situation. I needed to get out of it, and I needed to cut labor. I need to use my credit cards. My dad maxed out all of his credit cards just to pay for payroll. It was a bad situation.
Yeah.
Right. And my father let me talk to the banks. So I was I'm sitting in a room, I'm 20 years old, I'm talking to a 55-year-old, he obviously knows I know nothing, but I have enough common sense and knowledge to look at the numbers and figure it out and be like, okay, well, this doesn't make sense. You need to work with me here and negotiate my way out of it.
Yeah.
So, I kind of got that background from my parents from before about negotiations and learning. So I had that background, but obviously I wasn't at that kind of level.
Yeah.
But since my dad let me do it all and work with the lawyers, I learned so much about the business. I learned every single detail of the financials of what the cash flow needs to be, or what the capital needs to be, or what the line of credit needs to be. And those things were very critical. And those are things that you will not learn in school. And not many people will ever be in a position where they're going to go bankrupt and they get to be thrown into the business and try to figure it out. Right. I think that was one of the most important things that my father did for me. Whether he meant it or not, it really made me so much stronger as a person and as a knowledge person, and just so much more resilient to future problems.
Yeah, for sure.
Right?
Well, and it sounds like it gets back to trust too, right?
Yes.
Having that opportunity to kind of prove yourself and it's going to suck, but I'll figure it out.
Yeah.
That
was tough.
Entrepreneurial mentality 101, right?
I had very similar, some very, very challenging
Close times.
Oh yeah, man. And not feeling like my parents were immigrants as well. Very similar story to you. They just worked their ass off and then
nonstop.
But the business mind wasn't necessarily always
there.
Through no fault of their own. It just is what it is. And then now it's okay, son, here you go. And you learn on the fly.
It's the passing of the torch, man.
That's it.
And you don't see it. It just kind of happens.
Yeah, of course. I think it's not a one day thing.
Yeah.
It's I wake up and
exactly. Your parents kind of see it and they know, and you'll know. And it's just like, okay, we kind of passed the torch, but no one really passed it. Like, you know what I mean? It's just like, it just happens. It's just a flow of nature.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, I think we know more now than ever about what it takes to be successful in entrepreneurship. But to both of your points, like, at a certain point, entrepreneurship is just, it's survival. It's working to put food on the table and to like really move things forward. Yeah. And it's like, yeah, sure, now we know tactics and now we have, you know, a better framework for how to do those things. For the longest time, it was a natural kind of human byproduct of like, of course, I'm going to create value and try and sell it and try and move something forward for my family. And what's really cool is you both now have this opportunity because you've got time, because you have a little bit more space to say like, okay, how do we do this differently? How do we take what that knowledge is and the financial acumen and like all of those things, the technology that we can now leverage and make it, you know, better or more efficient or at least more sustainable for the future.
Exactly.
That's just 100%. So cool.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Well, gents, thank you so much for this conversation. It was awesome. I value knowing both of you and seeing what you guys are doing in our community and seeing what comes next is really cool. One last question for you both. What is next? What direction do you hope to see? Mike, and I'll start with you. What direction do you hope seeing DC Farms go in over the next 10 years?
I see myself, or my farm, I should say, with more of a focus on the sustainability route. Everybody throws that word around. It's putting a definition to it with proper benchmarking and data and utilizing my farm to tell that story and to scale up innovation for these larger farms. So like a testing ground of sorts.
Cool.
And within that would help. I like changing policy because that's where it's not sexy, you know, but that's where the real change happens. And if I can utilize my farm to do such, then that creates a ripple effect. And it's also, I believe, the bridge between community and industry and just even political parties. Like getting people to work together that's the sweet spot. Yeah. And that's where I see my farm going and growing amazing, tasty fruits and vegetables along the way as well. That's always the focus.
Of course.
But if I'm doing that, I'm going to throw these other things in there to kind of keep up to date with everything. And
I love that idea of taking swings at policy, because policy really does set the climate for how businesses grow in our country. And I think we're at this really interesting inflection point where we are seeing a lot of change in policy, and now is that time to kind of use your voices and push forward. So
100%. Cool. I mean, I grew up listening to Rage Against the Machine. Yeah. You know? And then as I keep saying, as I get older, I realize I'm part of the machine. So like, be careful what you're saying. Like Rage Against yourself. That causes some internal conflict. But that's where I got drawn to kind of these other areas. So
that's awesome. Hey, Colby, where do you see Stratus? Like, what do you want to leave behind for your kids?
I just want to keep growing. You know, I have so much ambition still, and I don't think I'm going to stop. You know, I'm expanding. I want to expand another 20 to 30,000 square more feet. I want to put more equipment in. I want to be sustainable. I want to be able to, you know, pay off all my debts and just have debt free. I just want to be successful business, and I'm going to strive and do whatever it takes to do it. And if I have to diversify, I have to diversify, right? And I got to do whatever I got to do to make sure that, you know, my success will go on for my future children and my future generations of people.
Very cool. Well, gents, WEtech is here for the journey. We're excited to see you on it, and we're here beside you in any way that we can help. So looking forward to working with you both further.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thanks for your help.
Awesome.